All right, there we go. Looks like we got things working on Rumble Studios giving us some trouble today. So we are live on YouTube. Good morning on YouTube. We're using the YouTube native streaming platform. So we'll see if YouTube has its shit together this morning. We'll see. And let me make sure we got everything else ready here. We are live on YouTube. Good morning, YouTube. Rumble Studio not working today. We are live on Facebook. Good morning, Facebook. That's Facebook/Work on Your Game University. LinkedIn usually goes through Rumble Studio, so there is no LinkedIn today. Sorry, LinkedIn. For those of you who would have been on LinkedIn, no LinkedIn today because we can't. I can't use the connection. And we are live on X. And yes, we are live on X. Okay, so that one is verified. Good morning, everybody out there on X. This is active now. I can actually see some data for X. I'm using StreamYard. Facebook's good and YouTube is good, I think. I'm not getting any feedback from YouTube, but it looks like it's working. Good morning over there on Instagram. Good morning on TikTok. As y'all coming in on TikTok, please like the live stream. Like the stream on TikTok. Let's get the likes up here. We want to get to 100K every day when I do these lives. About 9:30, we want to get to 100K. So as y'all coming in, shout yourselves out. Tell me your locations. As you come in, tell me your locations. We need 1,000 likes, though. I need 1,000 likes on TikTok before I start shouting out locations. We need 1,000 likes on TikTok. We're at 811. We need that to be to 1,000. And then I'm going to start going through and seeing who is in here. Shout yourselves out. Put your location in the comments. We got to get to 1,000, though. We're not quite there yet. All right, we just got to 1,000 likes on TikTok. Let's see who is here with us today. Shout yourselves out in the comments as you are coming in. I'd like to see where everybody's at. Nikki, thank you for liking the live early. Marky Man, good to see you in here as usual. Nikki, good morning. Checking in from Connecticut. Shout out to Connecticut. WPAT got the number 3 gifter badge early. Shout out to you for the number 3 gifter badge. Kuya bin Yashar Manson NC. Shout out to North Carolina. Shout out to Carolina. As y'all, thank you for the lightning bolt too, Kuya. As y'all coming in again, give me your locations. We got a bunch of comments came in all at the same time. Carol Ann Collins, Newburgh, New York. Good morning. D Dice asked me something about HGH. I don't know what that has to do with it. Marky Man, good morning. Trees of GA said I'm at headquarters. I don't know what that means either. Marky Man from California. Karen Bishop, Gadsden, Alabama. Good morning. Good morning, Karen. Dally Mack checking in from Charlotte. We got Bristol, Tennessee. Murphy DeMutt. Good morning. Caroline Rudder from Oakwood, Georgia. Mama P, North Carolina. Vale, Colorado. Shout out to Vale, Colorado. Ashley Mack, shout out to Colorado. Beautiful place. A little bit too cold for me, but Tiger Photography, good morning. Mark Wagner checking in from Pinellas Park, Florida. Shout out to Tampa Bay. I spent some time in Tampa Bay. Shout out to Pinellas Park. Nice area. Murphy the Mutt, thank you for sharing the live. Big Dog from East Texas. Good morning. Happiness Now from the ATL. David Woods from Georgia. Shout out to Georgia. Star 660 checking in from Jersey. Shout out to Jersey. Shout out to the tri-state. Ashley Mack said it's 100. When it's 100 at home, the cool mornings are great. Excellent. South Carolina is in the house. I see Ace the Great. Ace the Great. I see that. So the topic here today, we're going to talk about Miss Leticia James. Some of you may not know her by name. Some of you may. Some people call her Tish James, also known as Leticia James. Leticia James is a woman who, let me see if I pull a photo of Leticia James. As many of you may know her by her photo. If you don't know her by her actual name, did I spell her name right? Leticia James. Let me see. It's Leticia with a T. Did I spell it wrong? Yeah, I spelled her name wrong. It actually should be Leticia with a T, but I got Leticia with a C, but it's actually Leticia with a T. Leticia James. But all y'all get the point of who this person is. So let's see if we can find a good photo of Leticia James. Leticia James. I don't find his videos. I'm looking for a photo. Let's see. Let's go to photos. Find a photo of Leticia James. So Leticia James, he's still pulling videos. So I'll just go to her account. And it is right here. So this is the New York Attorney General. Her name is Leticia James. Some of you may remember this face. Don't remember the face, you definitely remember the voice. If you don't remember the voice, then you remember the story. Leticia James is the Attorney General of the state of New York. In other words, she holds the same job that Pam Bondi once held in the state of Florida before she got named the Attorney General of the United States. And she is her official account I'm looking at, 512,000 followers. She is also on Blue Sky, for what that's worth. That tells me if somebody has an account on Blue Sky, in addition to having an account on X, it tells me that they probably lean to the left. If someone with a whole lot of followers on X, let's say thousands, S with an S on the end, then they're on X, but then they're also on Blue Sky. Usually that means to me that they're leaning somewhat to the left. So they have this Blue Sky account. And I guess over on Blue Sky is where all the people on the left went to gather after November of 2024 so that they didn't have to hear from the people who lean to the right gloating about what happened. So what happened in that election. So Leticia James, the reason why she is in, first of all, the reason why everybody knows who she is Leticia James is the one who brought the fraud case against then former, now President Donald Trump in 2024. One of the 4 cases brought against Trump, looking to bring him down and stop him from being able to run for president in 2024. They weren't trying to stop him from winning. They were trying to stop him from running. And the reason why this matters, because as much as you hear people calling Donald Trump and his presidents a threat to democracy, quote unquote, the biggest threat to democracy was what happened in the summer of 2024, all of 2024, actually, when it was clear that one side politically was trying as hard as they could to stop a candidate on the other side, someone who had already won the presidency in the past and was clearly the nominee for the other side. They were trying to block this person from being able to run for the office. You want to talk about a threat to democracy? That's your biggest threat to democracy right there. And along with Mr. Alvin Bragg, he was one person who was involved. You had Fani Willis down in the state of Georgia involved. And then you had Jack Smith, special counsel Jack Smith, in the Mar-a-Lago case, and then Leticia James in New York City, all a coordinated plan to stop Trump from, again, being able to even run for office. Leticia James' famous, her case was about the Donald Trump filed some documents in the wrong way, and she went and found a reason, as the saying goes, show me the man, I will show you the crime. She went and found a reason that he had committed some type of fraud when it came to his finances, got a judgment against Donald Trump, and was basically saying, and she was saying, and the court was saying, if Donald Trump can't come up with the money to pay for this judgment, then we're going to go take his buildings and take his real estate holdings and take all the things that he owns, and we're going to take it. And Leticia James was basically personalizing this. I look at that building that I want to take. I look at this thing that I want to take of Donald Trump's. Of course, she'd be taking it on behalf of the state, wouldn't be hers personally. But this is what drew a lot of attention to Mrs. James, or Ms. James. I don't think she's married. Ms. James, in the summer of 2024. Now, she is famous for using the phrase, no one is above the law. And this, she kept using this, talking about Donald Trump. And everybody on the political left was using this against Donald Trump, using this, referring to Donald Trump in the summer, not the summer, the entirety of 2024, at least up through the summer. So let's just say the first 7-8 months of 2024, everyone was saying this: no one's above the law. Everybody has to be held accountable. If you broke a law, you got to be held accountable. This was the justification that a lot of people came up with to justify what was happening in all three of these cases. I think the two in the South had somewhat of a leg. It may have had a stump of a leg. These two cases in New York had nothing. It was the Stormy Daniels thing about did you put this into did you document this the proper way when it came to election spending, money spending? And there was that attorney, I forget that guy's name. What was that attorney that went to prison and was working for Trump at the time? I forget that guy's name. He was getting a lot of attention last year. And then this Tish James case was basically designed to bankrupt Trump, so he didn't have the money, so he couldn't run his case. And we couldn't run his campaign, so they brought this case. What was that attorney's name that was working with Trump in the whole case with Stormy Daniels? What was that guy's name? Anybody remember his name? He did some time. Yeah, Michael Cohen, that guy. So the whole Michael Cohen case and all that stuff. So the whole thing was no one's above the law. So that means it's okay for Trump to have this lawfare used against him. I've done entire live streams on this subject already in the past. So if you haven't seen it, check my YouTube channel. The link is in there. This lawfare that was used against him is basically warfare, but using the law instead, all designed to stop him all at the same time. And of course, we know it failed. Now, Leticia James, the reason she's in the news right now is she herself, as a citizen, is facing two separate grand jury investigations. I don't know if y'all know about this. One of them is in Albany, New York, where looking at whether she committed some civil rights violations and abused her power in that lawsuit, that fraud case against Donald Trump. And that fraud case came to a judgment of $454 million of victimless crime, basically a paperwork crime, quote unquote, that they went and found. As the attorney general, she could go find a crime against anybody if she wants to. She did that. Got a $454 million civil fraud case against Donald Trump. And then there's an NRA corruption case. And the other, they're asking whether she committed civil rights violations and abused her power when doing those cases. So that's one thing. The other one that got a little bit more attention, at least as far as I have seen, is in the state of Virginia. So in Virginia, they're probing alleged mortgage fraud tied to her personal real estate. So Ms. James has some real estate in the state of Virginia. And in that case, they're looking at possible mortgage fraud because when she filed her paperwork, she claimed that one of her homes in Norfolk, Virginia, she claimed that it was her primary residence, while at the same time she was working in New York, where she does her job as the attorney general. And she also misstated the number of units in her brownstone that she owns in Brooklyn, New York. And this allowed her to qualify for certain loans that had she given the proper number, she may not have qualified for those loans. And she has listed her father as her spouse on official paperwork, probably so she can get more favorable terms when it came to monies owed, what she would pay, kind of loans she could get, etc. So these are all on her record right now, and she's being investigated for all of these things. Now, she is not officially in court yet. She's being investigated. This is proper languaging here. She has not been charged yet. Who knows if this is going to happen or not. But if proven, these actually lead to charges such as wire fraud, such as bank fraud, such as falsifying documents. It's already known that these things happen. Now, what she's trying to do is trying to kind of paper over this and smooth this out so that it doesn't become a charge. Because first of all, she's an attorney general. So if anybody can make a charge go away before the charge happens, it's somebody with the skill, knowledge, experience, and the leverage of an attorney general. So if you are not a fan of Leticia James, I'm not a fan of her. And if you're not a fan of Leticia James, don't get excited yet, because this may not become a charge. We'll see. And again, if anybody can make some stuff go away, it's somebody with the power of an attorney general, especially in a big state like New York State. The irony here, though, is hard to miss. The reason we're talking about this here today is the irony is very hard to miss. The top enforcer of the law in the state, who specifically made herself a national name. I never heard of her because I don't live in New York. She made herself a national name because of her whole thing. No one's above the law, and going after Trump for allegedly financial fraud. And she's supposed to be this enforcer of financial honesty. Here she is caught red-handed, being financially dishonest to help herself personally. So she's playing loose, fast and loose with the rules, while her whole thing was no one's above the law. No one can play fast and loose with the rules. Everybody gets held accountable. Now it might be her time to get her comeuppance and to be held accountable. That's why this is the topic here today. And it's bigger than just Leticia James. All right. This is much more connected. Of course, we know her because of her decision and her declaration when she was running for office that her thing was, I'm going to go after Trump. I'm going to get Donald Trump. She ran on this. She got elected on this. Alvin Bragg, same thing. I'm going to go after Trump. They both went after Trump. And you could say on one hand, they were successful in going after him, but also unsuccessful because he still ran for election. He still won his election while going after Donald Trump. That's why we're talking about this here today. So let me introduce myself and tell y'all how things go over here. My name is Dre Baldwin. Many know me as DreAllDay. I'm a former 9-year professional athlete. I run this company called Work on Your Game Incorporated. What we do here is we help high performance individuals and high performance teams weaponize performance, discipline, and accountability. So if you have a team of people who needs to perform at a high level and you want them to be high performers who are highly disciplined and self-accountable and self-starters, our products, our offers, our programs can help your team. If you're an individual person who wants those same things, we can help you as well. You can learn more about me and what we do in our programs and our systems by going to the link that you see in my profile. I'm on, I think, 6 different apps here today. Rumble was not working. So we got YouTube, LinkedIn, X. No, not LinkedIn. YouTube, Facebook, X, Instagram, TikTok. And am I missing one? YouTube is 1, Facebook is 2, X is 3, Instagram is 4, and TikTok is 5. So only 5 platforms today. So we're slacking off. Only 5 platforms today. No Rumble, no LinkedIn. But if any one of these apps that you're watching on, just click the link and you can learn more about working with me. So what I like to do here is I'm going to go through the content for maybe about 20 more minutes or so. Then we're going to open the floor up for conversation. So if you have a question or a comment, you can leave it when I get around to the comments. I may not see your comment if you leave it right now because I have to scroll up and I try to read everybody's comments. So you might want to wait for about 20 minutes when I open the floor up for discussion for you to leave your comment. But I will address comments. I do that every single day live in the flesh. So if any of you think this is AI or a recording, it is not AI. It is not a recording. Here I am right here. It is 8:26 a.m. Wednesday, August 13, 2025. Now, AI could probably say that, but this is real. So let's get into it. So this shows that the justice system can turn its spotlight on prosecutors, not just defendants. Maybe. Even high-ranking officials are not immune from federal scrutiny. Now, see, this is the corporate speak that, and when I say corporate speak, I don't mean corporate because the government is not technically not corporate, but the bureaucratic speak that everyone was using in 2024. All y'all remember this, right? Everybody remembers what was happening over the last 12 to 18 months ago when Donald Trump was getting charged and people were starting to say, wait a minute. All right, so one case, okay. Another case, okay. Another case, all at the same time. They're trying to get this guy incarcerated. They're trying to get this guy removed from the ballot so that he can't run when it's clear that half the country wants this guy to be the nominee. Let's just say roughly half the country is going Democrat, half the country is going Republican. All right, we generally can agree to that, right? Of the voting bloc, let's say the voters. The Republican voters said, this is the nominee that we want. We want Trump to be the nominee against whoever the Democratic nominee is going to be. And the people on the political left, led by, at this time, Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris, they coordinated with all these other folks. This is my theory. They coordinated with all these other folks. Let's do everything that we can to get this guy from even having a chance, let alone winning. Again, it wasn't about beating him at the ballot box. It was about beating him before he had a chance to even get on the field, metaphorically speaking. This was lawfare. We all know it was lawfare. We all can look back and see that it was lawfare. We knew it was lawfare when it was happening. And when this was happening, the only thing that people on the political left or people who don't like Trump or the enemies of Trump were saying was, well, hey, nobody's above the law. Everybody can be held accountable. Doesn't matter. If you're a former president, you can be held accountable too. If you broke the law, then you got to be held accountable. You got to go to court. Even if you're a high-ranking official, you're not immune from federal scrutiny. That's what everybody on the left was saying when Donald Trump was the guy in the crosshairs. Now that Leticia James is in the crosshairs, she's not nearly as popular or nearly as known or as prominent as Donald Trump. But at the same time, it looks like she's trying to fight this and keep this from going to court to, again, save herself. Let's see if we can find anything that she's actually said about this whole thing. And I'm looking at her account. This is her official account, so I'm not sure she's going to say anything about this. This has actually been going on for it's been several weeks that this story has been bubbling, but I hadn't talked about it just yet. All she is doing is, this is just her official account. So this is all official business stuff. She's not saying anything about herself personally on here. And I'm not sure she has a personal account on X. It does not look like she does. So she hasn't said anything official that I can see, at least not on her official account. But this is all bureaucratic speak that, oh, well, everybody gets held accountable. We'll see. We'll see, because they took Trump to court and Trump got a judgment against him. 2 judgments against him. And another one got basically dissolved in the RICO case. And then the Jack Smith one couldn't go forward because he got fired after Trump won. But we'll see. That's all we'll say about that point. Now, what this does is undermine the moral high ground that Tish James was standing on, because she built her brand on this whole no one's above the law. I had never heard of her before. No one's above the law. And what did I tell y'all about politics? Optics is the game of politics. The whole game of politics is the optics. Leticia James is in a bad space optically right now. She did her job in going after Trump in 2024, but optically she looks bad right now because she looks extremely hypocritical. Most politicians are hypocritical, especially the ones who become publicly well-known, publicly noted politicians. Technically, they're all publicly noted, but once they get high profile, like they're going viral on social media, those folks, all of them are hypocrites. They all are hypocrites. Why? Because they have to get on the microphone or on TV or on the camera, and they have to preach that they're a certain type of person or they're about a certain thing, and is often occupying some moral high ground position relative to their opponents, at least according to them. My opponent is doing this terrible thing down here on the low road. I'm doing this good thing to help all of you, the citizens, on the high road. Every politician does this. Every politician takes this position. And the reality is every single one of them has to lie to be successful in politics in the United States of America. I've said this in the past. To be a successful politician in the United States of America, as the government is currently constituted, you cannot tell the truth all the time and be successful. You can tell the truth all the time. You can be successful, but you can't do both. You got to pick one. You want to be well known. You want to keep winning elections. You want to keep the people eating out of your hand, and you want to keep people voting for you, supporting you, and being galvanized by your message and showing up to your tour speeches in the middle of time when you're supposed to actually be doing work, Bernie Sanders, AOC, then you can't always tell 100% the truth. You have to bend the truth. You got to play a little bit with the truth. You got to pick and choose pieces of the truth out of context to use in your favor or against your opponent in order to keep the public activated, keep the public guessing, and keep the public, again, excited about whatever it is that you have going on. The reality is most problems in the government are multivariate problems, which means they cannot be traced to one single source or one single outcome or one single person. But if you were to start explaining all the details of a problem and what really creates a problem for, let's say, something happening in the government, especially at the federal level or even the local level, you would bore people by telling them all the details. Most people don't want to think. They don't want to go through all the details. They just want the high level, exciting, sexy point that they can attach themselves to, tether themselves to, and they can keep pushing it so that they can keep believing what they already believe, i.e. Donald Trump's a terrible guy. That's the reason why the economy's bad. I.e. the Democrats are horrible. That's the reason why Donald Trump has to save the debt. See, are those the whole story? No. All of these problems are multivariate problems. But again, if you told people all the details, all of the variables involved in the problem, nobody wants to hear that because, again, that requires thinking and that requires time. So this moral high ground position that she's in, optically, she still looks bad. We'll see how this works for her when she's up for re-election, which will be sometime in the future. So this brings accountability into the same arena she once used to go after her opponent, Donald Trump, and it sets a precedent for oversight for powerful legal figures, maybe. Again, this is bureaucratic speak. These are things that are being said about the Leticia James things because, again, this hasn't even been brought to a charge yet. Right now, it's just an investigation. If she did these things, I don't know what they're still investigating. She did it or she didn't do it. And if she's caught kind of fudging the truth or just straight up lying, looks like she's caught straight up lying, then she needs to be held accountable, just like anybody else would be held accountable, just like Trump. So these alleged misstatements when it comes to her mortgage filing, this mirrors bank misrepresentation. I mean, the bank alleged mortgage misstatements mirror the bank misrepresentation charges that were used against Trump. Because the whole thing about Trump was he didn't do some paperwork a certain way that Leticia James brought a case against him. Let's see if we can just pull up the details of this case that she brought against Donald Trump in 2024. So we know exactly, let's just use it exactly as it is. Get this off the screen. So I'm going to go to Grok because Grok tends to be good with current events. Tell me the details of the charges that New York AG Leticia James brought against Donald Trump in 2024. What specifically was she accusing him of, and what was he found guilty of? All right, let's see how Grok does. So Grok is doing this thinking. Sometimes Grok gets, yesterday I was looking this up and it was getting a little bit slow with this. So it said it's likely a misspelling. I didn't spell anything. All I did was say something. So Grok is correcting itself on misspelling, as you all just saw. I was just speaking. So the what do they call this? The transcription misspelled her name with a T when it's actually a C. So Leticia James spelled with a C, in case any of you didn't know. It's all right. Let's see. Grok says accusations include. Oh yeah, they were talking about him inflating his net worth, inflating the value of his properties, inflating the value of Mar-a-Lago. How much is it actually worth versus how much he declared? And then he was doing the deals with the banks based on the valuations that he gave to the bank. And then she said, well, the valuations were actually not the real valuation. So she just came up. She just found this out of nowhere. So here's what happened for those of you who don't remember. So what? All right, so Grok, and this is the reason why I actually tend to lean towards ChatGPT than Grok. Grok sometimes makes mistakes, and it made its own mistake, and now it's correcting it as if I gave it bad information. So the case was filed in 2022. So she was trying to get him for a while. Key rulings happened in 23 and 24. There's a civil action, and Grok has corrected me. So this is one thing they do have right, that charges refer to civil claims or causes of action, and Trump was found liable rather than guilty. I never mentioned the word guilty, did I? Did I mention the word guilty? Oh, yeah, I did. I did mention the word guilty. Okay, so Grok, I gave you that point too. So this is the case that I'm talking about. So the background is there was a 3-year investigation prompted by testimony by Michael Cohen. Leticia James filed a civil lawsuit in New York Supreme Court under New York Executive Law Statute 6312. It targeted Donald Trump, the organization, and his children, Donald Trump Jr., Eric Trump, and initially Ivanka Trump. She was later removed. Alan Weisselberg, Jeff McConney, and several Trump-related business entities. So she accused the defendants of engaging in persistent and repeated, we're not going to read all this, there's a lot of details, persistent and repeated fraud over more than a decade, from 2011 to 2021, by submitting 200 false and misleading asset valuations in Trump's annual statements of financial condition. So when he filed his paperwork basically saying this is what I got business-wise, that he was inflating the values so he could deceive banks and insurers and tax authorities to get better loan terms, lower insurance premiums, tax benefits, and basically he was able to unjustly enrich himself, according to Leticia James. This was the charge. So the Trump Tower complex, it got valued as if it was 30,000 square feet when it's actually only about a third of that. So the overvaluation was up to $327 million. Mar-a-Lago inflated to between $426 to $612 million, treating it as an unrestricted private residence, ignoring deed restrictions that are limited to a social club. And the actual assessed value says 18 to 27 million, which doesn't actually make sense. Mar-a-Lago is actually worth a lot more than $18 million. Golf courses and other properties overvalued by hundreds of millions using unsubstantiated, quote unquote, asking prices or ignoring appraisals. Other inflations like 1290 Avenue of Americas was misrepresented as unrestricted cash, overstating values by up to $1.5 billion, according to the lawsuit. Rent stabilized units at Trump Park Avenue were valued at market rates despite legal caps. And conspiracy to falsify business records, issue false financial statements, and conspiracy to commit insurance fraud. This suit alleges this fraud saved Donald Trump over $150 million in interest on loans from banks and others. So the total inflation of Trump's net worth was estimated at $2.2 billion in a single year. And she wanted disgorgement of ill-gotten gains, bans on business activities in New York, and other remedies. So in 2024, an 11-week trial, it was a bench trial, no jury, addressed the remaining claims and penalties. Trump, his sons, and others testified. Judge noted a lack of contrition, Final verdict is issued holding all defendants liable on the 6 remaining causes of action. So they were found liable for basically everything I just told you. The financial penalties, Trump was ordered to pay $354.8 million from the fraud. And this is called disgorgement, plus prejudgment interest, totaling $464 million. And interest is still continuing to accrue at $112,000 a day. His sons each got to pay $4 million. Weiselberg got to pay $1 million. They were banned for 3 years from serving as officers or directors of any New York company. This all actually happened. Trump and his entities cannot apply for loans from New York chartered financial institutions for 3 years. And this was in 2024, by the way. And there'll be continuing oversight. So as of now, he has continued to appeal this ruling. So the appeal reduced the bond to $175 million, which Trump did post. They paused some of the penalties, so he's not banned from doing business yet, and no dissolutions yet. Oral arguments were heard last September. Justices questioned the aspects of the statute of limitations, whether any banks were truly harmed, which is really the purpose of court, by the way, is was there real harm that took place here, or are you just hunting and just trying to find a crime so you can go after a person? Judges have questioned that. And if this goes to higher courts, I think it may get thrown out just on that alone. So this case is not over. The whole thing is, Leticia James, because she heard Michael Cohen's testimony, and Cohen was kind of pitting himself against Trump at this point. He was trashing Trump, Michael Cohen. She heard the things that he was saying. He was cooperating against Trump, and the things that he was saying led her to go in and suing Donald Trump, saying that he was overvaluing his stuff in order to get better loan terms from the banks. And the whole problem with this is not that. The problem was the banks were happy with the deals they did with Donald Trump, regardless of the numbers he was putting on his documents. No bank ever came out and said, hey, Attorney General of New York, do you know that this guy defrauded me? You know that this guy lied on some documents? You know that this guy had us thinking his situation was one thing when it was actually another thing? Can y'all do something about that? No one ever said that. This question was never asked. So Leticia James was going and making a problem where there was no problem. Why? Because she was trying to go after Trump. She was looking for anything she could use to get him. And Donald Trump has, yes, a lot of fans, but he also has a lot of enemies, a lot of people who don't like him, and a lot of people who wanted to, as best they could, participate in bringing him down in order maybe to save themselves, such as this guy, Michael Cohen. And this is what Leticia James used to go after him. So that's where this all came from. So this whole grand jury process gives her a chance to formally answer the allegations. So if she gets called, which she will, she gets to answer the allegations. And this transparent legal process could restore some of her credibility if she's cleared. I'm highly dubious of that. I think she appears in front of that grand jury, she's going to be caught dead to rights because she said her residence was a certain amount of units and when there's actually another amount of units. How do you get that wrong? It's the attorney general. You're literally a lawyer. You know that getting all the documents right in paperwork, crossing all your T's and dotting all your I's is the key to making sure that whatever you file is proper and on the up and up, especially after you made a spectacle of yourself by going after Donald Trump, by going after his details. His details weren't right, and then you get caught not having your details right. It's just the one thing she couldn't get wrong, she got wrong, which tells me she didn't get it wrong. Tells me she did it on purpose. That's just my theory. I'm not reporting it. Tells me she did this on purpose. She knew exactly what she was doing, and she understands just the same way Donald Trump does, that when you're filing paperwork with a financial institution, mortgage, loans, banks, creditors, etc., you want to give them the numbers that give them, hopefully in your theory, your idea, a better chance of giving you either saying yes or no, yes, and or giving you better terms that are more favorable to you, i.e. let me get more money in that loan, let me get a lower interest rate, let me get more credit, of a larger line of credit, et cetera, et cetera. And again, I'm not accusing any of you of this. I'm not reporting this. Everybody plays this game. I'm just saying, theoretically, everybody plays this game. We all know what it is. You apply for certain things. They ask you, what's your income? You may bump it up a little bit. They ask you, what are your expenses? You may bump those down a little bit. You may overestimate here and there. You may underestimate here and there. Why? To make yourself look better profile-wise when the computer or the AI or the person is looking at your file, and so that you can get better terms, and that helps you out. And if you end up paying off what you owe, everybody wins. The bank wins. The creditors win. You win. Everybody wins in this situation. So when you have these victimless crimes and then you get gone after because of these victimless crimes, that's when, again, it wasn't even a financial institution. Mind you, because you could say, hey, you defrauded the financial institution. But none of them ever complained about Donald Trump. None of them ever said Donald Trump did me wrong. None of them ever said the Trump organization defrauded us and got us to do a deal that we otherwise would not have done. They were happy to do the deal because they knew they were going to make money, and Trump paid back the money he owed. Or he settled everything properly according to the paperwork, because nobody ever complained. She just brought this up out of nowhere. Again, show me the man, I will show you the crime. That's what this was. So her claiming that her home in Virginia was her primary residence while serving in New York raises ethics concerns, to say the least. She's saying this is her primary residence because it would get her better terms and or allow her to get terms, period, that maybe she otherwise would not have gotten. And again, as an attorney general, you're a lawyer, or you have a law degree, or you know what the hell you're doing. She can't claim ignorance. If this is just some everyday person, this wouldn't even be a news story. You can't claim ignorance as a lawyer when you literally made yourself known by going after someone over the details, and now here you are getting the details, quote unquote, wrong. This can't be an honest mistake. So if this doesn't go through, if she doesn't end up getting charged and doesn't end up having to face a judge or a jury over this one, based on the information that I've presented here today, okay, this is just based on the information I've given you so far. Please keep liking the live, everybody. We're going to get to the comments in a second. Please keep liking the live. Based on the information I share here today, assuming that this is all true, she doesn't go to trial or have to face a judge or a jury, then this is going to look like exactly what it is, which is lawfare, which is they can do it to you, but you can't do it to me. Or we can do it to you, but you can't do it to us. As they say, rules for thee, but not for me. And we've seen this happen many times in politics. I remember the mayor of San Francisco during the virus. She's getting on TV every day telling everybody to wear a mask, and then they see her at a bar at a little concert, and she has no mask on. And people are like, yo, why are you not wearing a mask? You've been telling everybody else to wear a mask. Here you are without a mask on. Or Gavin Newsom eating at a restaurant, no mask on, but he's telling everybody else to wear a mask. AOC telling everyone wear a mask in New York, but she's on vacation in Florida. These are the same people telling you that you got to do this, this, and this, and they're not even doing it themselves. And we all knew this happened during the virus. And what the mayor of San Francisco said, her name was London Breed. She said, what people should be asking me about is how it's so great that this music band that hasn't performed together for 20 years finally performed together. She was at like a concert of theirs with no mask on, but everybody's like, yo, what about the mask? Told everybody else to wear the mask. This is the reason number 3,562, ladies and gentlemen. I tell you, do not trust politicians. Do not put hope in politicians. Do not depend on them for anything, because they are not here to help you. They're here to help themselves. And if they happen to help you in the process, cool, but that's not their job. Please keep liking the live on TikTok. Y'all just stop liking the live. What happened? Everybody's fingers stopped working. We need to get to 40K before I continue. Let's get to 40,000 likes, folks. We're at 37.9. Let's get to 40,000 likes and I'll continue. This should take about 30 seconds. If everybody just taps the screen like 25 times, we should get there in like 30 seconds. Let's get to 40,000 likes and I'll continue. And I'm going to repeat what I was just saying. When it comes to politicians in the United States, it's not just the federal politicians, it's the local ones as well. They are in the game. This is just my theory. I'm not reporting it. They're in the game because this is the best way for them to get access to power, prestige, notoriety, and other people who have power, prestige, and notoriety. They couldn't get this if they went and did a quote unquote regular job or even a regular business or career. They couldn't do it. That's the reason they do it in politics. And this is the reason why you see and hear so many of them saying and doing things that sound ridiculous. And you're like, how did this person get into that position? How they get into the position saying dumb shit like what they're saying and doing dumb things like what they're doing, getting caught doing something and then filibustering the situation by making it seem like it's something other than what we just saw. Don't believe your lying eyes is what you hear from a lot of politicians without saying it in so many words. How is it that these people get into these positions? I told you all this yesterday and the day before, that if you get into politics, there's a door that you have to go through, that as long as you're willing to go through that door, there are people out there who will protect you and help advance your career regardless of your actual competence or your actual substance. The politicians that we know about, the main names, many of these people don't have much substance. So how is it they get into these positions that look like they have power? That's exactly the point. And that's exactly the point. Did y'all see Cat Williams when he was on the Shannon Sharp podcast? He said, what do you think a plant is? And when I say a plant, I'm not talking about the flowers you put in the pot in your house. What do you think a plant is? Many of your known politicians are planted in those positions because they're willing to do certain things on behalf of people who you don't know, whose names you don't know, and they're going to keep it that way so that they can get their agenda executed, but they don't have to do it themselves. They just use these people. So they go find someone who it does not have much substance, low morals, questionable character, no real professional skills outside of whatever they may end up doing politically. It doesn't really take a lot of skill except just saying the right things. Let's use this person. Let's use this patsy. Let's use this idiot. Let's use them to go after Donald Trump. We want to get Trump, but we don't want to put our names on it. Let's use her to go after Donald Trump. Let's use him to get this done. Let's use this person over here to get that done. I'm not saying every politician fits this description. I'm not saying it. I'm saying a whole lot of them do. That's what I'm saying. A lot of politicians fit this description. They have very little substance. They bring nothing to the table professionally. If they weren't in politics, they would not be prominent people. And they know that. And the people who use them know that. And that's why they put them in these positions. Am I saying this applies to Leticia James? I'm not saying it does, but I'm also not saying that it does not. Everybody following? So this could push for clear financial disclosures for rules for elected officials. I highly doubt this one. This is another red tape bureaucratic talking point. Sounds good, but I highly doubt it. Y'all know about politicians, especially those in the federal government and their financial transactions, such as their buying and selling of stocks. Technically, we were talking about this months ago. Technically, you are not supposed to, when you're in Congress, technically, you are not allowed to insider trade. There actually is a rule against insider trading for Congress people, but it seems to be commonly and continually violated. And one thing we know for sure, no one is ever prosecuted, no one's ever charged, no one's ever investigated for insider trading, even though it is obvious. If you know anything about the stock market and the way people buy and sell stocks, it's obvious that a bunch of people who work in Congress are involved in what really, really looks like insider trading. As they say, if it walks like a duck, talks like a duck, or quacks like a duck, then it might be a duck. It looks like a lot of them are involved in insider trading. I believe it was Mrs. Taylor Greene. I think it was her. Y'all tell me. I did a live on this like 3-4 months ago. It was right when Trump was announcing the tariffs. I think that was around April or May of this year. He announced the tariffs, and it was something that happened. It was like on a Friday. Marjorie Taylor Greene, who I believe is from the state of Georgia. Somebody fact check me on that. Is she from Georgia? Marjorie Taylor Greene, because you have to disclose your trades. She disclosed a bunch of trades that she did where she either bought or sold a whole bunch of stocks right before those stocks either went up or down. I don't remember what direction the stocks went, but it was perfect timing. All the things that she made her transactions on right before something happened that only way she knew it was going to happen is because she was on the inside. And a bunch of people were talking about this. We talked about it here on these lives. And it was like, what the hell? How the hell did that happen? That's insider trading. It looked like insider trading, meaning it was the type of thing that would get investigated. But it didn't get investigated because even though there's a rule on the books that says you can't do that, no one enforces it because who's going to enforce it? People in Congress make the laws. So anyway, continuing. Listing her father, Leticia James, back to her. She listed her father as her spouse on an official filing. All right, is that a mistake? Give me a yes or no in the comments. Give me a yes or no in the comments. If you list your dad as your husband on a document, is that an accident or did you do that on purpose? Give me a yes or no. Accident, yes or no. Her listing her dad as her spouse on a filing document. So that means she doesn't actually have a spouse. If she had a spouse, she could just put him as the spouse. She put her dad. I don't think you mistake your dad for your spouse. She put him on the document. This is clearly intentional, but right now we have to say if that becomes blatant falsification. That's blatant falsification. People who don't have power and status go to jail for things like that. And filing that paperwork and signing it and saying that this is, I attest, you know, when you sign certain documents, you got to check the little box that says, I hereby acknowledge that the information here is true and accurate to the best of my knowledge. And I understand that falsifying this information would actually be a crime that can be penalized up to 3 years in jail. You know, the little box you got to check when you sign documents. She signed a document that said, that's my spouse. All right, people go to jail for that. Everyday people go to jail for doing that, just on that alone. So this kind of misstep, and this is not a misstep. This looks very intentional to me. This is the kind of stuff that attorney generals pursue aggressively against everyday people every day. Prosecutors go after everyday people every day for stuff like that, and she did it. And I hope that some of you pay a whole lot of attention to what ends up happening with this investigation, because if we are to believe that no one's above the law, literally, and that no one can get away with this just because they have status and power and they know people who have status and power, then she should be being charged just for that piece alone. Forget everything else. You put your dad as your spouse, and then you sign that document and said this is true. All right, you out. That's lying. That's fraud. Just that alone, nothing else. Forget everything else we talked about. So this forces a conversation about equal application of the law across political lines. We all know that the law is not equally applied. Everybody knows that the law is not equally applied. Again, show me the man, I will show you the crime. If they want to get you, they'll get you. And if you don't get on their radar, they'll leave you alone, even if you might be doing some stuff that technically could get you in some trouble. Even if the charges don't stick, the investigation could erode public trust. But I think public trust in people like politicians has already been eroded. Damage to her reputation. Yeah, she's going to take some damage. But overall, what she did to go after Trump, and technically she successfully went after him, but it didn't achieve the ultimate goal. She won the battle, not the war. We'll see if this even matters amongst people who care about her and the things that people like her are saying. All that said, let's open the floor for some discussion. If you have a question or a comment, let me see. If you have a question or a comment, you can post it in the comment section. We will get to them now. Let's see what we got. It looks like YouTube is working. So shout out to YouTube Studio, finally working. Rumble not working today. We jumped over on YouTube. Over on X, shout out to the people on X. I don't see any I can't see any comments on X. Actually, I don't know if there are comments, or if there are, I can't see them. But shout out to the people on X who are watching. Over on Instagram, Will Avilas, good morning. All right, TikTok, you are up. It is your time to shine. So if you have a question or comment, I'm starting at the oldest comment. So don't be in the comments talking about he's ignoring my comment. I'm not ignoring anybody's comments. I'm starting at the oldest and I'm catching up to the newest. Now we got about 35 minutes here and then we will be complete. So let's see. Chris String said, projections have been projected. Hypocrites always their lies onto others. She's fake. Well, yeah, we know that. Yes, I can concur with everything you said. Father of 7 said the same people that didn't support Trump being held accountable want to talk about who above. Well, that's, I think I'm catching what you're saying. Same people that didn't support Trump being held accountable want to talk about who above. No, actually, you're saying the opposite of what I thought you were saying. So support Trump being held accountable, Father of 7. I need to know exactly what you mean by that. So when you say support. When I hear somebody saying that do you support something or mentioning supporting thing, I think it Piers Morgan, because he always uses that term. Do you support this? What exactly does that mean? Trump being held accountable, it depends on being held accountable for what, by whom, on what grounds. What did he do wrong and what are you holding him accountable for? I need to know that to know what you mean by support him being held accountable. And this one, the thing that happened in New York with Tish James, this was a victimless crime where no one who was involved actually claimed any wrongdoing. They were all happy with the dealings they had done with Donald Trump. So why are you going after him to quote unquote hold him accountable for this? Because if we're playing that game, then that means anybody who goes over the speed limit should get a speeding ticket. Anyone who turns without coming to a complete stop first, making a right turn at a red light, they should also face something. See, nobody's doing it. So what kind of game are we playing here? It sounds good when we're talking about it happening to everybody else, but do you really want to play the game that literally? Because if so, everybody's going to get held accountable, including me and you. Michaela Mills, thank you for the follow. Sandy said, have you considered that Trump is a serial criminal? All right, name the crimes. Name the crimes. Show me the man, I'll show you the crime. Father of 7 said, don't talk theory, talk facts. Well, first of all, is an investigation. That's the fact, which I've said. So for me to offer any further opinion other than a fact, that it's an investigation, I would be reporting something that's not actually true. So I have to speak in theory because otherwise I'd be claiming something to be true that's not actually true. And when you say talking facts, facts don't matter anymore. The reason why facts don't matter is because anyone can pick and choose any fact that they like to make any argument. And you can also easily and conveniently ignore any fact that you don't want thrown into the conversation. So here's one fact that Father of 7, you seem to be ignoring, which is this is a victimless crime. No one complained about this. Leticia James just made the case up out of nowhere, and they couldn't even make it a criminal case because there was no victim. That's the reason why they had to do it in the civil way. Over on X, McLean Charles. So I guess I can see comments on X. McLean Charles said, how are you able to be an athlete, transition your life to who you are now? I'm assuming a businessman. How was I able to do it? I could write a whole book on that question. I actually did write a book. It's called Work on Your Game. You see it right there. You can get that book at workonyourgamebook.com. But McLean, to answer your question quickly, is I started doing business things. I started doing business things when I was still in college, kept learning about business while I was still playing as an athlete, and then started doing business stuff while I was still playing, because you have a lot of free time as a pro athlete. So I started building what we all now call building your brand. I started doing that while I was still playing. So about halfway through my career, I really started doing it like on a focus level in addition to playing. Then by the time I stopped playing, I already had some momentum going as an entrepreneur. So that's a short answer to your question. You want a long answer? I got episodes of my podcast where I've detailed it in more info than what you're asking. More info than what I gave. What you're asking is a good question. Go to my podcast. It's called Work on Your Game. You can find it on Apple or Spotify every day for free. Sonny said, have you considered that Trump literally violated the insurrection clause in the Constitution? I push back on that. The insurrection clause, that would be to assume that there was an insurrection. I don't believe there was. There was a protest and people trespassed, but insurrection, that's a bit too far. Let's see. Father of 7 says, same way he's been doctoring numbers the past 2 weeks to keep from talking about the Epstein files. Well, everybody's talking about the Epstein files. So how has he been keeping from talking about it? Everybody's talking about it. I don't think they're coming out, but I talked about that yesterday. But Father of 7, don't spam my comments. You spam my comments, then you got to go. I should have said that at the beginning. Don't spam my comments, folks. Even if you disagree with me, I will read your comment, but don't spam my comments over. Don't say the same thing over and over again to get my attention. If you post it twice, I probably saw it. Now, if I didn't read it, there may be a reason I didn't read it, but generally I'll see it. Portia Man says, straight MAGA nuts. Who are you talking about? Me or you? Gregory Snipes said, of course she has to save herself. She's a target for Donald and others. I don't think Donald Trump found this. I don't think Donald Trump is looking for this. Kenneth Hartall, thanks for the share. Ashley Mack said, if the e-files were something of substance, they would have released them 4 years ago. Well, sometime during the Biden administration, it would have gotten released. I explained this yesterday. I've talked about this almost every day. Somebody mentions the Epstein files if Trump's name comes up. And it's the following, that there's enough people probably mentioned in, if there are actual files and logs of things that make someone look culpable of a crime, that it implicates enough people on both sides politically that nobody wants to put it up because they'd be cutting off their nose to spite their face. So nobody wants to do it. Lady of Growth, thanks for the follow. So the bottom line is, for most of you everyday civilians, you can keep talking about the Epstein files, but I doubt you'll ever see them. They ain't coming up. So you can keep saying it, but they're not coming out. I'm talking to all of you, because all of you talking, everybody on the other side talking about it. D said, eventually you'll be noticed by the Daily Wire. And why would I want to be noticed by the Daily Wire? Ago Quay said, that's the point. Multivariate. Tether themselves from an emotional standpoint, not on truth. Yes, exactly. Well, the truth is all the points, all in complete context. And the problem with all the points in complete context, it requires a whole lot of time and a whole lot of thinking. Most people don't want to do either one. They just want to pick. They already picked a side, and they just want points that validate what they already believe. That's the way 95% of human beings operate on both sides. Mr. Styles, thanks for the follow. Charles, thank you for the hearts. Let's see. Igakwe said, Mar-a-Lago is disgusting, all whites. What's disgusting about it? Kimmy said, the thing is he paid the loan back, so who cares what the value was or is? Well, exactly. That's what I said. That's why Tish James has made up a crime, and it wasn't even anything to be. There was no crime. There was no victim. What's the crime? Tom said, Trump had both civil and criminal cases in NY, though. He didn't have a criminal case. He had civil cases. There was no criminal case. His criminal cases were in the South, the RICO in Georgia, and the documents case at Mar-a-Lago. The ones in New York were civil cases. Needle Applebaum, thanks for the follow. Yo Kirk said, maybe she learned from the best fraudster. Who's she and who's the best fraudster? And I don't think Tish James and Donald Trump are working together. And the charge she brought against Trump is nothing to do with the kind of charges or investigation, excuse me, that she's under right now. Donna W said he gets away with everything. Who's he? And name everything. Be specific as to this everything. Irma V, thank you for the coffee magic. Good to see you. Mike Lacrosse, thank you. Mids 1001 says, so lawfare then. What happened to Trump in 2024 was lawfare. Yes, I will stand on that. Christy Coop 95, thanks for the heart. Snapback said, lock up Trump for treason. They say that about every president. The people who don't like the president say, oh, it's treason because he did this and this. People can make that claim about every president for the last 30 years. Elg Hubbard said they did more than just look for a problem. She made things up and lied. Now, I don't know about the lie thing, but did she create a crime out of nowhere? Yes, I said that. Britt said all the deflection of who supports who isn't on the agenda today. Well, yeah, people try to use that. If I say something about Trump that people don't like, then they say, oh, well, you must be a Trump supporter or a MAGA. I have no political affiliation. My only affiliation is to looking at the information that we do have and give you my opinion on it. Yo Kirk said, work for a mortgage company, lots of mistakes. Well, she do. They weren't mistakes. I think my theory is that she did it on purpose. I'm not reporting it. Looks like she did it on purpose. That's what it looked like for me. Kimmy said, yeah, I mentioned that dad is a husband. Bruh 834 said he said on multiple occasions he supports Trump. No, I never said that. Nice try though. Tom Likes Taco Bell says, suppose the projects the loans were funding fell apart and the bank had insufficient collateral. Well, suppose. Okay, I got done supposing that didn't happen. So now what? Let's see. Doodle Emmy Luhu, thanks for the follow. Doodlebug said we need to get back to the days of our founding fathers, part-time volunteer politicians. Yes, that was the way that it was designed, and we see what it's become. I agree with you. Carla Indiana said Jasmine is a plant. I would think so. I wouldn't contest that. And she's doing a good job after being planted. Tyrone White said, is he telling the truth? Maybe, maybe not. These lives as about likes, that's what it is. I don't quite get what you're saying there. Carla said Martha Stewart went to prison for insider trading. Yeah, because the prosecution wanted her for that. She could have not for that, but she did. Depends on who's in charge and who notices and who cares. All those things matter. The ones just prior to COVID lockdown were clear cut. Well, it's still clear cut. It's just nobody cares. Nobody's doing anything about it. That's the whole thing. So a bunch of you said it was on purpose. Yeah, we know it was on purpose. We know it wasn't an accident when she put her dad as her spouse. You don't mistake your dad for your spouse, and you don't just all of a sudden think you have a spouse if you ain't got one. All right, that's not something you forget. Billy Stern 692, thanks for the follow. Irma V, thanks for the gift. Music on stage. Roger Anders, thanks for the follow. Where was I lost my spot. Carla said, bye, Big Tish. And I don't know about that, Carla. You're speaking too soon. I don't know if it's going to go that far. She might not even have to go to trial. We'll see. Paul Bishop says she went after Trump for the same thing. His accountant took the rap. Yeah, exactly. That's the reason why this is a story. But we'll see if it actually becomes a charge. Queen Tink Marche said, let's not act like fraud is important anyone. Well, isn't that what Trump went to court for? A lot of people go to court and jail for fraud. Fraud is a thing. If you get caught, you can definitely go to jail. How many people you can name? Famous people went to jail for tax fraud. A whole lot of people. Famous people. Entertainers. A lot of entertainers have gone to jail for tax fraud. So fraud is a big deal. Robert said, we know the law doesn't work and he's leading the country. What do you mean by that? I'm not quite sure what you're saying. Netta, thanks for the follow. Alex A. Molina, thanks for the follow. Man of Steel, good morning. Kerry Bennett, thanks for the follow. Doodlebug said, when someone runs solely on targeting opposition, you know they will abuse their position. That I can agree to. Donna, thanks for the follow. Tina Tant said, you always tell the truth. Thank you. Murphy the Mutt, gifter badge, congrats. Tyrone said, well, until he's proven innocent or guilty, he shouldn't be in office until all is clear. Who are you talking about? Who's he? And innocent or guilty of what? The cases are over. All those 4 cases I mentioned are all completed and adjudicated. And innocent and guilty are only for criminal cases. 2 criminal cases he had fell apart. The cases basically, let's just say they got dropped. So there is no innocent or guilty to prove. In civil cases, is not innocent or guilty, it's liable or not liable. So in civil cases, liability. And just because you get sued in a civil case, and even if you quote unquote lose, you get found liable, doesn't actually mean anything. You lose a civil case without having committed a crime, because you're not proving a crime in a civil case. So a lot of people don't understand the difference between a civil case and a criminal case. They're not the same. BD said a protest, LMAO. That's what it was. January 6th was a speech by Trump that a whole bunch of people came to. Then people protested. They marched over to the Capitol building and protested. Then some of those people broke through the barriers and went into the building, which would be trespassing. That's what happened. Speech, protest, trespassing. Now, to call that an insurrection is a reach. Insurrection is trying to take over a government. How are you going to take over a government with no weapons and a couple hundred people? You're going to take over the entire government with a couple hundred people and no weapons? That doesn't add up. Logically, it doesn't make any sense. It sounds good emotionally to people who don't like Trump, but logically, no. Couldn't do it. Gloria, thanks for the follow. Yo, Kirk said, wow, I'm floored. I don't know what you're floored by, but get up off the floor. Trucker J said, careful, Jay, you're going to ruffle some feathers today. Well, I do that every day. It's just a matter of which feathers and how many. A King said they all need to be held accountable both sides. Well, held accountable by who? That's the question. Sylvia said, I'm curious, why didn't the autopin pardon Fani and Leticia? That's a good question. I don't know. Take Chances, Live Life says, wish more folks listen to you. Me too. I wish more folks listen to me. Apollonio68, thanks for the follow. Mark Wagner said, do you think Trump derangement syndrome is real? Psychologist, because it sure seems to be. Well, I'm not saying it's like something that you can diagnose medically. I'm not a psychologist or psychiatrist to diagnose. But is Trump derangement syndrome a thing? Yes, it is. It's basically what is known as cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance is the experience that a human being goes through when a real world experience alters your belief about the real world. And you find out that what you thought was true is actually not true. And 1 second. So what happened with Donald Trump is a bunch of people thought based on what happened with the stuff about Donald Trump, all the things that's been said about him for the last 10 years. The first TDS wave was in, I'm doing a return for this product on Amazon. Give me 1 second. Where is this? Here it is. The first wave of TDS happened November 9th, 2016, because a bunch of people were told, and by the way, I experienced a cognitive dissonance. I never had TDS. I'll tell you the difference. So cognitive dissonance, again, you think one thing, then real life shows you something different, and you have to decide, well, which one is the reality, or do you adjust your thinking? You adjust the reality, or what can you do? So I thought there was no way Trump could win in 2016. I didn't think he was going to win because based on what I was hearing, let me see. Okay, based on what I was hearing, that the only people who were going to, wait a minute. I'm trying to return something on Amazon. I just need to get the return code. You do get the little code. Amazon makes it pretty easy to return things, but sometimes they ask too many questions. They're asking me questions and shit. So I'm getting the answer to this question. All right. What we were told, let me not try to do two things at once. Let me just send this text. All right. We were told that everybody who's going to vote for Trump is a racist, right? Isn't that what we were told? Racist, hateful, homophobic, xenophobic people were going to vote for Donald Trump. So the only way he can win is that he got to get a bunch of those people to vote for him. Knowing what I knew, of all the people who vote, let's just say 150 million people, half of them would have to vote for him, about half or a little bit more than half for him to win. There's no way that half the people in the country are going to go for something like that. Then when he won, I experienced some cognitive dissonance. I said, how the hell could he win? Because that means, based on what I had heard, that people had to be homophobic, xenophobic, racist, etc. Only care about straight white men, etc., etc. So that day after he won, I was just going through my brain and thinking to myself, how is that possible? Because my belief was this, but real world said this. And then I just went into my memory banks and my experience of life. My experience of life is I've been to damn near every state in America. I know a whole bunch of people of all different backgrounds, colors, origins, where they come from, religions, etc. I have a very eclectic group of associates. So I said, there's no way that half the country that votes could be homophobic, xenophobic, racist. But half the country that voted for him, which means either A, I was wrong and that half the country is homophobic, xenophobic, racist, or B, they were lying that voting for Trump does not make you homophobic, xenophobic, racist. I had to choose between those two. And my cognitive dissonance was having to choose between these two beliefs. I can either say that my belief is true. This is what most people do. They have a belief about life, and no matter what happens, all they do is double down and triple down on what they believe. So if you believe only people who vote for Trump are terrible people, and then Trump wins an election, then you just assume, oh, half the country must be terrible people because they voted for Trump. That's a ridiculous way of thinking, especially if you have any life experience. And I knew that would be ridiculous for me to think. So I thought, okay, that must mean option B. Option B is my belief about anyone who votes for Trump obviously was false. Everybody who voted for him can't possibly be these terrible people. Let me go and listen to what they're actually saying. Let me go and listen to some of the podcasters or live streamers or people on social media who actually think Trump is going to win, think Trump should win, and are happy that he did win. Let me hear what they have to say. And as I started listening to those people, I realized, okay, I was the one who got fooled. I was listening to too many people on one side of the conversation. I was not listening to the other side of the conversation. And I realized that the reason that people supported him had to do with a whole lot of things that had nothing to do with being homophobic, xenophobic, racist. So the people who choose option A, everybody who votes for Trump is terrible, and then he wins, or that means half the country is terrible. That's TDS. Trump derangement syndrome is when you start thinking and believing ridiculous things just to support a worldview that was obviously inaccurate. That's Trump derangement syndrome. Trump derangement syndrome is now in 2025. People still trying to say anything negative about him to assuage your emotions, as if saying something negative about him is going to do anything. He can't run for president again. He's not going to be in politics again after 2028. Okay, you may not like him. You can criticize what he's doing or not doing, but it seems like a lot of people are just so emotionally triggered by the guy and the thought of him that they will just say anything negative about him anytime his name comes up just to make themselves feel better. That is Trump derangement syndrome. You can dislike someone or something, but if you just can't help yourself every single time the name or the thought comes up, you are getting into that TDS zone. So Mark Wagner is a good question. Is it a real thing? Yes. I wouldn't say on a diagnosis level, but is it a real thing? It is, as I just explained. Miss C, thanks for the follow. Where was I? I lost my spot again. No, there it is. Doodlebug says, amazing that people are so twisted they believe feelings are facts. Well, some people do. What a lot of people do is because of their feelings, they will accept any fact that correlates with their feelings, and they'll reject any fact that does not correlate with their feelings. That's what most people do. With love, Parker and Rory, thanks for the follow. Gloria said, thank you for the common sense. Thank you. IT Burnout said, I love your tie, by the way. Thank you. Brian Miller said, may I ask what your take is on inflation right now? Americans are struggling to make ends meet. My take on inflation right now? Well, inflation is always happening, Brian Miller. Cost of things are always going up. I did a whole live stream on this probably maybe about 10 months ago. And I did episodes on my podcast. My podcast is called Work on Your Game. I did episodes on this subject as well. Thing is, the federal, what is that place called? The Fed. What do they call it? The Federal Reserve. Federal Reserve Bank. They print money. And every time you print money, you lower the value of the money that's already in existence. That means if I collect money and I collect $3 to get eggs, to sell you eggs, and I take that $3 and I pay my staff, I pay for my equipment, I keep some profit for the business, and I can do that off $3, but the Fed keeps printing money. So now the value of that dollar goes down, because when you increase the amount of anything, the value of it goes down. Anytime something circulates and circulates more and more and more, not circulates, excuse me, there's more of it in circulation, the value of the thing goes down. So now what I used to be able to do with $3, what I charge you for the eggs, I can't do that with $3 anymore. Now I need $4 to get it done. So I got to raise the price of my eggs. So now I can still pay my staff, take care of my equipment, and make some profit for the business. I need $4 for eggs now instead of $3. Now inflation goes up more. Now I need $6. Inflation goes up more. Now I need $10. Inflation goes up more. Now I need $14 for my eggs. That's always happening because the Fed is always printing more money. And there are other reasons. I'm putting it on the Fed to keep it simple. As I already explained to you all, multivariate problems. This is a multivariate problem. Cost of life is a multivariate issue. It's not one thing or one person or one thing or one outcome that is causing this situation. There are several things causing the situation. The Fed printing money is but one of them. And the further thing, Brian Miller, Real Estate, says, Americans are struggling to make ends meet. Well, that's not new. There are always some percentage of Americans struggling to make ends meet. And here's my solution to it. It's not a solution that's going to make everybody happy, but I'll tell you the solution. The solution is every one of you want to put yourself in a position to where you are not going to be struggling. You need to be in a position where you can make more money and you can make money as you wish on your call and the way that you want to make it. That's really the position you got to put yourself in, so that as the value of the dollar goes down and therefore the cost of things go up, you can keep up with that cost. That's pretty much the quote unquote solution. Some of you may not like that solution, but it is a solution. Now, if you want to try something else, okay, you try it, you see how it works out. What you don't want to end up as is someone who is dependent on the government for your food, clothing, shelter. You don't want that. So, Brian, Americans struggling to make ends meet is not a new phenomenon. I say help the people who are serious about being helped and help them get to the point where they don't have that issue anymore. Doodlebug says she's a lawyer, knows the process. If she signed and benefited from it, is premeditated fraud. Well, it doesn't even mean she has the benefit. According to the Donald Trump situation, there only had to be a benefit or a victim. Just the fact that she did it is enough. Stuart, my sport was basketball. Doodlebug said AOC believes her brother was her husband. I don't know what that means. Kai Wildcat Christie, thanks for the follow. Bama Landscaper, thank you for the follow. Jared, I don't know what that is you're asking about. Ober Gaffel, I don't know what that is. Papa Clark said, my boy defending January 6th, LMAO. I didn't defend it. I said, what happened? What happened? There was a speech. There was a protest. There was trespassing. That happened on January 6th. How was that defending it? What I said, I wouldn't call that an insurrection. That's all I said. Is that defending it? Let's see. Kurt 8 said, Democrats sure didn't lose their shit about due process for J6ers. Good point. David Rowe, thanks for the follow. Vicky said, the troops are coming to Baltimore. They're going to clean Baltimore. Is that good or bad as far as you see it? Mark Wagner said, for what it's worth, I'm a U.S. sleeper, and I was physically at January 6th, and it was a setup. Okay, I'll just read that comment. I don't know what else to say to that. Carolyn Rudder said, look at the name calling against you. TDS is real. Carolyn, this happens every day. This is not new. You spend enough time on the internet, there's nothing you can hear that hasn't been said before. Trenton Keith said, you're speaking as if his speech wasn't connected to the trespassing, vandalism, assaults, and deaths. Well, you're speaking like a Democrat, all right, which is what a whole lot of them tried to say. And that's why they tried to get him for the January 6th thing. And as we can see, 4+ years later, did it work? I would say it did not. So if you want to say his speech was connected to trespassing, vandalism, assaults, and deaths, well, legally speaking, Trump protected himself by saying, when I'm done with this speech, and I'm paraphrasing him, you're going to march down to that Capitol. He said that. Then he said 3 words that basically protect him legally. He said peacefully and patriotically. He said that in the speech on January 6th, peacefully and patriotically. So if I say y'all march, which everybody's allowed to do, you protest, everyone's allowed to do, and I say peacefully and patriotically, and some people violate my instruction and they decide to not be peaceful and they go do something, they're doing that on their own volition, legally speaking, just by the fact that I said peacefully and patriotically. Now, if he said go down there and break down the doors, then that'd be a different story. He didn't say that. He said peacefully and patriotically. Those 3 words put him in clean space when it comes to anything legal. And if it wasn't the case, well, why didn't they take him to jail for it? So some of you are responding to things in the context at the time I was saying it, so I don't know what you're replying to, so I can't read your comment because I don't know what you're talking about. You got to give me context when y'all leave comments here so I know what you're referring to. A King 508, thanks for the follow. Take chances, live life said, that's the best explanation I've ever heard of TDS. Well, thank you. I do this all the time. Kara, thank you for the follow. This is 40 said, the media has destroyed people. It's like they gaslit them so hard they can't think for themselves. Well, that's always been the case. It's just become more pronounced ever since social media, because social media back in the days, 30 years ago, if you wanted to consume media, you had to sit down and turn on the TV. Nowadays, you can consume media through one of these and you don't have to go anywhere. We usually have these within arm's reach all day. So you can get a whole bunch of media without even having to get up from the couch. Ryan Jackson, Regina Shea, thank you for the follow. Emilio Ramon, 54, thanks for sharing. A King said, so I have TDS since I can't hear his name without a little cringe. You might have a light case of TDS. You got a slight cold. You got a light case of TDS, A King. President by whining about it. That you can criticize the president if you think something he did is wrong. What often people bringing him up and they sound more TDS-y is that they're just talking shit about him because it makes you feel good, not because you actually are saying something of substance. That's what most of the Trump comments that I see when I'm talking and his name is a subject. People just saying things that it appeases you to say something negative about him, and then you get other people responding to what you say, and that makes you feel good. But what exactly is being achieved? Answer is very little, nothing. Carla, thank you for the gifted badge. Brian Miller, you're welcome. Thanks for asking the question. Progress Toucher said, isn't the percentage of people struggling now higher than before? Okay, this is a good question. Progress Toucher asked. The answer is probably. I mean, struggling is not quantifiable, but let's just say that what you're saying directionally is true. That there are more people struggling now in 2025 than there were in 2015, and more than there were in 2005, and more than there was in 1995. Do I believe that's the case? I would say yes, it is. Is that ultimately sustainable? I say probably not. But this is the reason why I can say what I say, because I don't work in the government. If I worked in the government, this is a problem that needs to be addressed. Here's where I can give some credit to Mr. Bernie Sanders. I heard Bernie on Joe Rogan. Y'all didn't hear Bernie on Joe Rogan? Well, listen to it. He actually sounds pretty sensible. He said a couple of things that were ridiculous, but generally for 2 hours, for a guy who's 80-something years old, Bernie sounded actually pretty sensible in the interview he did on Joe Rogan. Now, generally, Bernie and others, he's the most prominent, but Bernie and others have all been saying that there are people who are struggling to pay bills, people struggling to pay rent, people struggling to pay childcare, people don't know how they're going to pay, how they're going to live for the next 6 months. They don't know, even though they have a job, because their job's not paying enough to keep up with the cost of life. Is that a real thing? Yes, it is. And are there more and more people falling under this problem? The answer is yes, there are. And people like Bernie go into politics because ostensibly they're trying to help solve this problem. And I believe that Bernie believes the stuff that he says. And he is claiming, this is one thing I don't agree with Bernie on, and his protege, AOC, is that the reason why this is occurring is because these rich, greedy oligarchs are the ones collecting all the money, and they are causing the issue with the people who don't have money. I don't agree with that. I don't agree with this whole concept of if I'm struggling, I'm going to look at the people who are doing well, and I'm going to blame them for the fact that I'm struggling. I don't like that. I don't like that frame. I'm not a fan of that frame. And Bernie Sanders is a proponent of this frame. That's one thing I strongly disagree with him and his daughter, AOC, on. Now, do a lot of Americans agree with it? Yes, they do. A lot of Americans go with this. Those of you who live in New York, y'all about to get a new mayor based on this. Now, he ran on this, that he's going to do these things that are going to make it easier for people who don't have the money and feel like they're struggling. And basically what he did was appease their emotions. And to win an election, that's what you have to do. And again, this is why AOC looms for the Democratic Party. Whether you think that's good or bad, she looms because she's very good at playing this game. And Bernie Sanders has been playing this game for 40 years. He taught her everything. He taught her everything he knows. So she's about to come the next wave, and she's like not even 40 years old. So he's saying that it's because of all these rich, greedy billionaires. I'm not a fan of that frame, because I'm not a fan of any frame that takes a person who's not doing well and says the reason you're not doing well is because of these people who are doing well. And if we just were to fix them from being the impediment to your success, then you will be successful. That's a bullshit frame. Like, I come from the sports world where you got to get on the field and prove it. and I'm an entrepreneur where you got to go out there and you got to perform and produce results. I am a huge proponent of self-accountability and self-ownership and taking responsibility for your situation. Even if you did not cause your situation, I'm a huge proponent of taking ownership of it, because anything you do not take ownership of, you do not have responsibility over, and therefore you have no power. And if you deem yourself powerless by blaming your circumstance on anything outside of the person in the mirror, you get used by whoever you think has the power, i.e. the oligarchs, i.e. the government, i.e. some politician. And a lot of people, let's just say Americans, a lot of Americans buy into this very unproductive frame of my situation is not my fault. Therefore, let me go look at Bernie Sanders or even Donald Trump or AOC or anybody out there that's not yourself to solve my problems. The problem with that frame is that now you are giving all of your power, what little of it you have, and you're giving it to someone else. Now they control you. And when you're under the control of another person, eventually they're going to use you in a way in which you don't want to be used. That's the problem with not taking accountability and ownership of your situation. So this is it's a problem that doesn't have a clear solution. Again, this is another multivariate problem. This is not an easily solved problem. That's the reason why I'm not in politics also, because if you're in politics, you have to solve problems that are not so easily solved. The problem is there's a bunch of people with money, a handful of people with a lot of money, a whole bunch of people with no money, and the situation's getting worse. How do you solve that working in the government? Well, the answer is there's no actual solution. There's no solution to this problem. Andrew Yang says give everybody a basic income. I don't think that's going to work. Where's the money going to come from? Secondly, I don't think it's going to work. Number one, where's the money coming from? Number two, Bernie Sanders says tax the rich, and AOC says tax the rich. Okay, you tax them, they may take their businesses away, so you can't tax them at all, and or they may increase their costs to offset the taxes. Now that makes the cost go up to everybody else. So you're creating another problem by solving one problem. That's not really a solution. The other thing is, what are they saying? Well, we just got to take money from them and force them to pay their fair share. This is Joe Biden, Barack Obama language. Make them pay their fair share. Let's just say that they paid their quote unquote fair share. A lot of that money is going to get caught up in the bureaucratic red tape. Is not actually going to trickle down to the people. We all know that trickle down economics doesn't work. People have been talking about trickle down economics since I was old enough to understand what was being said on TV back in the 1990s. They've been trying it for 30 plus years. It's never worked. Trickle down economics does not work. I.e., take the money from the rich, and that's going to help the poor not be poor anymore. Does not work. It's been tried. It's been proposed. It sounds good when you say it on some campaign. AOC, Bernie Sanders. Has it ever actually worked? Does anybody have any proof of this working? It does not work. Other countries have tried it. Y'all can name some of the countries that tried it, and look what happened to them. It does not work. The only real quote unquote solution to this problem is you have to teach the people who want to be taught how to be more self-sufficient, more personally accountable, take more power in their own hands, and go make themselves more valuable in the marketplace. Therefore, they can command and receive more money in the marketplace. That's the only way you really solve, quote unquote, this problem. And the problem with that problem is that not everybody wants to learn to be self-sufficient and powerful and self-accountable and have ownership. A lot of people who are in rough situations right now don't want to hear what I'm saying, because that will require them to actually do something and take ownership. You got to do something if you take ownership. If you have power, you must take action, and it requires effort and energy. Most people don't want that. Most people want a solution that says it's not your fault. You didn't cause this problem. You don't have to solve this problem. I'm going to fix the problem. Just vote for me. Follow me on social media, and I'm going to solve all your problems. You are proposing something for nothing. There's another reason why you should not trust politicians, because they often propose something for nothing. It's a fundamental violation of the laws of the universe to say you're going to give somebody something and they don't have to give anything up to get it. That is impossible. It does not exist in the universe. Everything has a cost. The cost of you depending on a politician to do something for you when you are not doing anything yourself is that you must give up all your autonomy, all your ownership, all your agency. Now the government controls you. You don't want the United States government controlling you. So when Bernie Sanders and AOC come out and say, we're going to solve your problems, and Zoran Mamdani, I'm going to solve all your problems, just vote for me, and you don't have to do anything. Just vote for me and watch me solve all the problems. That is bullshit. They can't do that. They don't have the capability of doing it, but it works to win elections because a bunch of people who don't want to take ownership will gladly sign up for a proposal of something for nothing, no effort, but all of a sudden all my problems are going to be solved. It does not work that way, ladies and gentlemen. Do you believe in magic? All right, there's no magic. You can't just do nothing and somebody's just going to solve all your problems just because you voted for them. All you got to do is push a button. All right, I voted for him. Now all of a sudden I'm not broke anymore. All of a sudden I'm not going to afford childcare. All of a sudden I can pay for eggs because I just pushed one button. You did nothing and you got something. That is a lie. All right, that's a cartoon. All right, that's a fairy tale. It does not work. So someone like myself, if I was to get into politics, I would say something like what I just said. And at that point, my career would be effectively over, because my political donors and the people, the powers that be in politics who know how the game works, they would, first of all, they tell me before I even got on mic, like, Dre, we watched some of your live streams on YouTube and TikTok and we heard you talking this self-ownership nonsense. Don't get on the stage saying that shit, because you're going to destroy your career. And all of our money that we donate to your campaign is going to go up in flames. And we might as well have just flushed that money down the toilet. You get on the stage telling people they need to be self-accountable and take ownership. That's not the way it works in this game. You get up there and say that, we're going to have a problem. And if I got up there and said that, not only will my career be over, but they'd be coming for me. And Leticia James will find a crime that I committed. All right. And then I'd be going to court. All right. Why? Because they found a reason. That's the way it works. That's the way it really works, everybody. So if I'm talking to 100 people in a room and I start saying that about, let's just say there's just random people. If it's 100 random people, maybe about 10 to 15 of those people would be excited about what I just said. The other 85 are like, who the hell is this dude? And who told him to get on the stage? Get his ass off the stage. That's what they would be saying. So if you want to know if I would ever get into politics, I just gave you a sampling of why I would never be successful in politics unless I change my entire approach. So you know how they talk about Jasmine Crockett and how she talks like she's this ghetto person who came from the hood, but then people look into her background and she went to a private school and comes from a nice neighborhood and she's fronting as if she's something that she's not. Well, the reason why she is playing that game is because, as I already explained, when you get in politics, they go find people who don't have a ton of substance outside of politics and they don't have a lot of career prospects. And they go to them and say, listen, here's your chance to be somebody in life. All you got to do is what we tell you. And they tell her what to do. She's not just deciding on her own volition. This is what I'm going to do. She is playing the game that she's been told how to play, because that gives her the opportunity. If I was to get into politics, all this stuff that you hear me saying on these and in my podcasts and in my articles and in my books, I couldn't go up there talking like that. The average person doesn't want to hear this shit. The average person does not want to be held accountable for their own success. The average person wants somebody to solve all their problems for them without them doing anything. That's what the average person wants. And if you're going to win an election in the United States of America, you must speak to the thoughts of the average person, not the thoughts of the high achieving, accountable person who takes ownership. That's such a small percentage of people. You can't win an election talking to them. I would say I did an episode on my show talking about this. About 2% of people are truly ambitious. Maybe about 10 to 15% claim that they're ambitious. So even if just the people claiming that they're ambitious love me, I'm only going to win about 10% of the vote, 15% if I do perfect. The other 85% is going to my opponent. So I would get trounced in an election. If I did an election against Jasmine Crockett, she would destroy me. If I was talking the way I'm talking now, I would have to talk completely differently to beat her, because I would have to play her game better than she's playing. I would have to play the game of, I'm going to solve all your problems. Just leave it to me. It just fundamentally goes against everything I'm about on a principle level. So this is the reason why, to answer the question, what was that question? Pro grass toucher. Thank you for asking the question. The percentage of people struggling now is higher than before. Yes, it is. And is it getting higher? Yes, it is. Here's the thing that I meant to say that I didn't say at the beginning. The rich get richer and the poor get poorer. All of you have heard the saying before, right? Now, the question is, why is it true? Why do the rich always get richer and why do the poor always get poorer? The rich get richer and the poor get poorer because of habits. Habits. The law of inertia states that an object in motion shall remain in motion. Object not in motion shall remain not in motion until or unless acted upon by an outside force. Which means what? It means the habits that you already have in life, tend to keep doing the same stuff. And the stuff that you're doing now, stuff you've been doing, that led to you where you are today, you tend to keep doing it, and it takes you even further in that same direction. And the people who are doing things that make you successful, or you're on your way to success, will continue to build. And the people who are doing things that make you a loser, or you're on your way to losing, you will continue to lose. This is why the gap gets bigger. The rich are getting more and more rich because their habits make them rich, and the poor are getting more and more poor because their habits make them poor. So the gap between the two keeps widening. Politicians point this out. They say there's a big gap between the haves and the have-nots. Are they telling the truth? Yes, they are. What they don't tell you is why the gap is occurring. Everybody has a different theory as to why the gap occurs. I just told you the real reason why, because I just gave you scientific law as to why the gap occurs. A politician will tell you the gap occurs because these rich people are greedy and they're just using you and exploiting you. That's what they'll tell you. I'm telling you that you are either getting richer or getting poorer because of what you do. Your own personal habits of thought, your habits of decision, and your habits of action, and your associations Those are the reason why you either are getting better or you're getting worse. You're building or destroying, you're growing, you're dying, or you're getting richer and you're getting poorer. Now, again, if I was to go say that on the campaign trail, I would not win, because now I'm holding a mirror up to people, and people don't show up to political rallies because they want to be told what they need to do. They show up to political rallies so that the politician tells you what they're going to do for you, and you don't have to do shit. That's why Bernie Sanders has a couple thousand people coming to his rallies while he's on tour right now, not because Bernie Sanders is giving them a prescription for what they need to do to help themselves. Nobody would show up. That's what he was doing. They're showing up because Bernie Sanders is telling them what he's going to do to help them, and they don't have to do anything but sit there and clap. All right, it sounds like a great proposition, but it's not true. That is called the free lunch. This is the third law of economics, ladies and gentlemen. There is no such thing as a free lunch. There is no such thing as a free lunch. If someone offers you a free lunch, any of you know how to fish, and you ever been fishing before, even if you don't fish, I don't fish, but everybody understands the concept, right? You put some bait on the hook, you put the hook in the water, a stupid fish sees the hook that looks like a free meal, something for nothing. They go try to get the free meal, and they end up becoming the meal. All right, is that pretty much how fishing works? All right, that's how humans work when you listen to a politician telling you what they're going to do for you. They throw the bait out there. You take the bait by voting for them, and then you become the meal because you're sitting there waiting for them to fix all your problems. They ain't fix the problems. 4 years later, okay, let me vote for somebody else. Last person didn't do it. Let me vote for the next person. They didn't do it. Let me vote for the next person. And before you know it, 30 years then went by. You voted for a bunch of people, and you still in the same position, or worse. There, I just explain the lives of most people. So the solution, quote unquote, is for the people who are serious about taking ownership to actually take ownership, which requires effort. And the people who don't want to take ownership, you're going to become a peasant. That's what it's going to be. That's where we're going over the next 25 years. It's going to be peasants. We don't really have peasants in America, but we will have peasants. So we got the homeless. I don't mean homeless. When I say peasants, I'm talking people who are you're alive. You might have a home, but you're getting by on scraps. That's where we are headed right now, unless there's some type of major anarchy, upheaval, and chaos in our governmental system. We're going to have a peasantry in America. We don't have that right now. We got upper class, middle class, lower class, and we got homeless. But in between the homeless and the lower class, there's a space. Those are the peasants. And we're going to have a peasantry in America. That's what's about to happen. So don't say you weren't warned. Actually, Bernie Sanders told you. He just gave you the wrong reason. And he gave you the wrong prescription. So me and Bernie Sanders actually agree on some things. What we disagree on is why it's happening and then what you should do about it. Those are the two places Bernie and I disagree. And the reason, and Bernie having his reason and his prescription is the reason why he's a popular politician and why I'm not. So everybody understand that? Chicken D, thanks for the follow. Jiminy Slick said, my college basketball playing son is enjoying your books. It's excellent. Which books does he have, Jiminy, and where's he play in college? What schools does he go to? Unwiser One, thank you for the follow. Where am I at? I was almost caught up on the comments before these soliloquies, so now I'm further behind. Let's see. Mo says, substance, the man is waging war on homeless while adorning the White House in gold. Okay, well, that's how you feel. But I didn't say Trump had substance. I said a lot of politicians don't have substance. Actually, what I said. So you're arguing something that I didn't say, which makes it a straw man. So Mo, you get the straw man of the day. Congratulations to you. There have been several straw mans here today. I just didn't point them all out. But Mo, you get the straw man of the day, first award. Straw man is a common logical fallacy. When someone takes something that you said, they rephrase it into something that you didn't say, then reposition and represent it to you as if they're repeating your words back to you. And or they give some argument against something that you didn't say, i.e. the straw man, which is the straw version of your actual point. So Donald Trump's doing a whole lot of things. You only pointed out two that are framed to make him look bad. That's TDS. Robbie Lance said, thanks for doing these lives, Dre. You're welcome. Robin EB74 said, love the tie. Thank you. I just got a couple new ties yesterday. I didn't break them out yet. Carlos said, let's keep tapping. Yes, let's keep tapping. We just hit 100K. Thank you, everybody. We're at 100K. Mo said, the problem with the tech billion is that the consumer doesn't see a return in their local economy. Well, tech is often federal and global. It's not local. So you're right about that one. Then you said, so you're thinking small. I don't know what you're referring to. What specifically are you disagreeing with? Kuya said, I still see posts coming from men that Trump won because men didn't want to see a woman as president. Well, Kuya, first of all, every voter in America has a right to vote for whatever reason they want. Now, if someone posts that on social media, maybe they really believe it. Maybe they're just talking shit. Maybe they're just trolling. Maybe it's not even a real person. Just because someone says something on social media does not mean that's what they really think. Maybe it is. And to go to that point, let's just say a bunch of people didn't vote for Kamala just because they didn't want to see a woman as president. My response to that is So what? What if they didn't? What if they didn't want to see a woman as president? What if they didn't want to see a black person as president, quote unquote black? I did a whole album on that when it comes to Kamala. Well, what if somebody didn't want to see another black person, quote unquote black, as president, and they didn't want to see a woman, so they just voted for Trump, even though they don't like Trump? If that's their reason, I say, so what? Everyone has a right to vote for whatever reason they want to, and they can vote for whoever they want. That's why we have a democratic voting process. Your reason does not have to be justified to anyone else. So if someone really believed that, they have a right to. Chelsea said, it's easy to make money in America. People need education and not be so lazy. Well, Chelsea, those things you said in the second sentence, you made it sound easy. Education requires thinking, and lazy requires effort. So, Chelsea, if you can solve that problem, you can make a whole lot of money. You can find enough people who care, and they're willing to go with that. Uncle Trey said universal health care. Okay, now who's going to go to the medical companies and tell them that they're not going to make money anymore? I would love to hear that conversation. Route Man said, pay their fair share. How much is their fair share? What's the number for their fair share? Well, that's a question for Joe Biden and Barack Obama, not for me. And Bernie Sanders. Go to one of Bernie's tour dates. So he probably takes questions. What is the fair share that you're talking about? I doubt he's going to give you an answer. He will give you, actually, he's not going to give you a number. He's going to give you an answer, but not a number. Go to his website. He probably tells you. King Solomon said, how do we solve the problem of AI taking jobs? Seems we might have to have some form of socialism. Well, King Solomon, is a great question that you're asking. How do we solve the problem of AI taking jobs? I say that problem is probably not getting solved. That's the reason why we're going to have peasants. That's what I explained. There's going to be peasants in America because a bunch of people who are working low skill, entry level jobs are going to be replaced by artificial intelligence. And because these people already have very little skill, and now AI has basically eclipsed their skill set, those people with no other skills are not going to have a job. They're going to be peasants. That's what I'm explaining. There will be a peasantry in the United States of America. And they're going to be the people whose jobs get taken by AI. This is already starting to happen. It just isn't big enough yet to be obvious, but it's coming. How do we solve that problem? And you say it seems like you might have to have some form of socialism. I don't think that's the best solution. It is a problem. It does need to be solved, but who are the politicians y'all voted for? They're supposed to be solving this problem. That's the reason why I'm not a politician. The politicians are supposed to be addressing these things. So the fact that many of you are bringing these up because they are issues, I agree they're issues. What are our politicians doing? Aren't these the people we voted for to solve these problems? They're supposed to be smart, right? Aren't they supposed to be the smart people solving all these problems before they become problems? Not as smart as they look. Well, they never look smart to me, but anyway. Newman Wave said, why not just increase the wages in order to support the cost of living on an annual basis? Because if I increase your wages, then you got to justify why I got to give you more money. I'm a capitalist. I'm an entrepreneur. If I'm an entrepreneur, you work for me, and you come to me and say, Dre, you've been paying me $10 an hour. Now I want 15. I'm going to say, okay, what are you doing to justify me increasing your wages by 50%? I'm not just going to increase it just because you want me to pay you more money because you need more money. How is you needing more money my problem? That's the question I would ask you. If I'm the employer and you say I need more money, so give me more money, I'm going to say, why is that my problem? You need more money. Then what you should do is come to me and say, okay, Mr. Dre, I need more money from this job. So here's what I can do to provide more value as an employee. And in exchange for this increased value, I'm asking you to increase my pay. Now, that's a conversation we can have. But if you come to me and just say, I need more money, so pay me more money just because my cost of living went up or my rent increased or my insurance premiums went up or my childcare costs more money, I may say to you, how the hell is that my problem? That's your business. That's your life's business. I got costs too. I got to pay childcare too. I got to pay insurance too. I got to pay bills too. I had a busted pipe in my bathroom too. I had a flat tire in my car too. I didn't come to you and tell you to solve my problem. So why do I need to solve your problem? Why? Just because I'm the boss? I got to solve your personal problems? No. I solve your problems at the job. If you ain't got the right tools to do the job I hired you for, that is my problem. But you needing more money for your life Has nothing to do with me. You agreed to make $10 an hour for this job. You want $15 an hour. You got to tell me why you're worth $15 an hour. And if you can't answer the question, then this conversation is over. That's what I would say as the boss. So Newman Wave said, why not just increase the wages? Well, that sounds good if you're playing with monopoly money. Is it your money that you're spending? I'm assuming Newman, you're an employee talking like this. Why not just increase the wages? I mean, yeah, why is anybody who works at Walmart broke? Just give everybody $1 million. It solves the problem. Why is anybody homeless? Just buy a house. All right, sounds good. But how do we, logically, it doesn't make any sense. King Solomon said, I don't think it's possible for every able-bodied person to have a self-sustaining job. I agree. I don't think it's possible either. That's the reason why it's competition. Job market is competitive. Everybody heard of that before? The competitive job market. The jobs that pay the best or that are the best, whatever people consider a job to be good, is competitive. Everybody wants something that is valuable. Therefore, you must compete to win it. There's a reason why sports give away trophies. They give trophies to the winners. You got to outcompete everybody to get the trophy. If you give a trophy to everybody, then the trophy doesn't mean anything. So our participation trophies mean nothing. Take Chances said, if we could switch those numbers, this would be unbelievable country. 85% accountability, 15% lazy ass. Well, yeah, if you turn on some cartoons on YouTube, maybe you'll find a world where that occurs. But everybody knows that's not the case. Peekaboo said, you ever talked about the rhetoric of 14-year-old being made adults so they can get married? I've never talked about that. I don't know what you're talking about. Murphy the Mutt said, as Hillary said, the voters are dumb. Well, I think people in general, the masses of people they don't think, they don't read, and they're lazy. That's what I would say. I don't know if I would say they're dumb, but I get your point. A. King said, it's more expensive to be poor. Technically, if you do the analysis, I get what you're saying. Progress Toucher said, do you think nepotism plays a part in success? Well, in one way, yes, because if someone is already successful, that means you can put your kids on without them having to do everything you did to become successful. So does nepotism play a role in that way? Yes, it does. I don't have a problem with nepotism. The reason why, as adults, we all want to work really hard is so that we can set our kids up so that they don't have to do everything that we had to do from the beginning to get to a point of being in a good space. Doesn't mean they won't have to work hard. It doesn't mean they shouldn't learn the value of hard work, but I don't want my son to have to go through every single thing that I went through to be successful, or my daughter to go through everything I had to go through to be successful. I want to set them up to be more successful from the start because of the work that I did. That is the responsibility of a parent, is to put your kids in a better position than you were in. If they got to do this, everything that you did, what was your point? What was the purpose of you being there? Notorious said, rich people have habits that so don't make any sense. What do you mean by that, Notorious? Your comment is grammatically incorrect. King Solomon said, how much does it cost the average taxpayer to support the social system in the U.S.? You're asking the wrong person. That's the question for Bernie Sanders. Murphy the Mutt said, I will vote for you. Well, thank you. But you are not enough votes. I wouldn't win with just your vote. I need more votes than that. Arlene, Fizzin' Gems. Thank you for the share. Thad Gilive's son said, so, everybody. Thad just started a comment with the word so. We all know what usually follows when someone says the word so. That means a straw man might be coming. Let's be sure. Let's see. He says, so if you're poor with rich habits, you will get rich. So this is a straw man. Straw man, again, when someone rephrases what you said into something that they said, and then they present it to you as if they're repeating your words back to you, when what they did was just weaken your argument and then argue against it. That's what Thad just did. So let's see what he's saying, and then let me correct it to what I said. If you're poor with rich habits, you will get rich. If you have rich habits, you will become rich. Would I stand on that statement? If you have rich habits, can you become rich? Yes. Now, what Thad Gilive's son said, if you're poor with rich habits. Well, first of all, what you're saying here is a non sequitur. This is an oxymoron. You cannot be poor with rich habits. That's impossible. Let's see, what example could I give? It's like being tall with short habits. Actually, that doesn't even add. Poor with rich habits. Let's just stick with that. Poor, first of all, ladies and gentlemen, is a way of thinking. Rich is a way of thinking. They are not financial states. Broke is a financial state. Poor is not a financial state. Poor is a mindset. So if you're poor, that means mentally you are in a certain frame of mind. You cannot have rich habits with a poor mindset. That's impossible. If you are poor in mind, then you're going to be poor in habits. Your actions follow your thought process. So if you have rich a rich mindset, your habits will naturally be rich. And if you have a poor mindset, your habits will naturally be poor. So what you're asking here is a non sequitur. Your question is oxymoronic in structure. So it's also a straw man because you reframed what I said to saying something dumb, which came from your mouth, and pause. And then you threw it at me as if that's what I said. That's not what I said. Notorious says, so here we go again. So we shouldn't vote is what you're saying. Okay, so this is a two tells for the straw man is one when someone starts a sentence with the word so. That means they're about to rephrase what you said into something that they said. And by the way, just to remind all of you, I'm a professional at articulation. I don't need any of you to rephrase what I said into your way of saying it. I'm better at it than you are. That's number one. Never rephrase my statements into your version of my statement because you're going to make it about 50% weaker as soon as you do that. And he says, so we shouldn't vote is what you're saying. I didn't say that. So I don't know where you got that from. And then is what you're saying. So this is another tell for the straw man is someone says, so you're saying, or this is what you're saying. In other words, they're paraphrasing you in their own words. And they often do this to make what you said sound stupid so that they can argue against the dumb version of what you said, which is their version of it rather than the actual version of what you said. So Notorious, try again, please. Coach Ben Yashara said, if eggs are too expensive, raise chickens like I did. I got 21 and getting 14 eggs a day. So there you go. Kuya Ben Yashara just solved all you all's problems who don't like paying for eggs. Just raise some chickens. That solves your problems. I get what you're saying there, Ben, but I don't think everybody has the ability to raise chickens. All right, a few more comments, and we'll wrap this up, folks. We got about 5 minutes left. King Solomon says, sounds like you're assuming. This might be a straw man. Let's see. King Solomon said, it sounds like you're assuming. That's the tell for the straw man. Everyone is going to be in the rat race. Some people don't care about money. Well, this is a straw man, King Solomon. I don't know if you're trying to make my point sound bad, but you straw man because you just rephrase what I said into your version of what I said, which again, I just told everybody, don't do this. I don't need anyone's help in languaging my thoughts. So I'm assuming everyone's going to be in the rat race. I didn't say everyone, first of all, and I'm not making any assumptions. I just gave you a scientific explanation of why the rich get richer and the poor get poorer and the gap continues to widen. So people talking about the gap, there is a gap. And is the gap getting bigger? Yes, it is. I just told you why. Am I assuming everyone's going to be in a rat race? Depends on what you mean by the rat race. But did I say there's going to be a peasantry? I did say that. That's not the same as the rat race. Rat race is often more the lower middle class. So it depends on how you're defining the term. Then you said some people don't care about money. I didn't say anybody cared about money. Money is required for food, clothing, and shelter. You need money to live. So you don't have to care about money for money to be important when it comes to your lifestyle. So those are two different things. So you're using some terms here that need to be more clearly defined for me to be clear what you're talking about. AU Hunter said, I'll vote for you too. All right, so I got 2 votes secured. I still think I need a couple million more to win anything. King Solomon said, at least we're having a civil debate. Thanks for that. We always have civil debates here. As long as people come with substance, you don't have to agree with me. You come with substance, we can have civil conversation. Practical Magical Tool 2 said, oh, thanks for the follow. Thank you. User said, most of us have champagne taste and beer money. I get what you're saying. I like champagne. Now, I don't like beer. I don't drink, actually. I will drink a glass of champagne maybe on New Year's Eve or something like that. Dante Divine said, a poor habit is living above your means. Build the right budget for your lifestyle. Yeah, sounds good. Sound like Susie Orman. A couple more comments here. Jenna said, rich mindset is misleading to people. Rich mindset doesn't mean spend all your money. That is true. Also depends on how much money you got. And is the money coming back to you? Is that money replenishing? Several pieces to that. A couple more comments, folks, then we'll wrap this up. I can't read everybody's comment. Isaiah said, don't say you're better because you don't know the level of education or professionalism anyone has. Isaiah, are you talking to me? Don't say I'm better. What did I say I was better at? The only thing I said I'm better at is my ability to language my own thoughts. And I am better. I'm the best in the world at putting my thoughts into my words. So I am better. So if that's what you're responding to, that's the only place where I said I was better than anybody. And I 100% stand on it. If you can disagree, if you disagree and you believe you or anyone else can put my thoughts into words better than me, please say the name of the person who can do it. I want to meet that person. I'll hire them to be a copywriter for me. And you said, then Isaiah goes on to say, you don't know the level of education or professionalism anyone has. First of all, your level of education has nothing to do with how good you are at your job. Education does not mean you're good at a job. Education means you went to school, graduated, and you passed classes. That's all it means. Doesn't mean you're smart. Doesn't mean you know anything. Doesn't mean you can do anything on a professional level until you actually do it. Education just means you went to school. That's it. And going to school is not a profession. And professionalism is about showing up and actually doing your professional job. And someone could be a professional at taking garbage out. They could be a professional waste management collector making $100,000 a year collecting trash. Doesn't mean that they're better or equal to me at putting my thoughts into my words. So Isaiah, this is a non sequitur here and a straw man. Jenna said, I pay $12 a carton for eggs. I wish we could have chickens. Yeah, I want some chickens too. So Ben, you got to tell all of us how to get some chickens. So I got to stop paying for eggs. I don't even eat eggs. Nobody, thanks for the follow. Newman said, why not make the government responsible for inflation? I don't know if we want to make the government responsible for anything that involves money, Newman. I would just say that as an answer. Take Chances said, I think you would get more votes than you think. I think I'd get a certain number of votes. Talking like this, though, I'm not going to win. That's the problem. I can win at the local level. I can win maybe like a city council seat or something like that. But we talking like big state elections like mayor or governor or even the state Congress or anything federal. No way. And first of all, I got to get some donor money. What donor is going to give me money to run my campaigns talking like this? If you know some of them, please say their names. Tell me what donors going to give me money to talk like this in an election campaign. Maddie said, I agree. You're excellent at putting your thoughts into words. Well, thank you. Street Therapy said you got 3 votes now. All right, yeah, so we're catching up. We're starting to stack votes here. I get enough votes. You know, you got to get on the ballot, you got to get signatures and stuff. So I might be sending y'all the petition with all the signatures. That way I can get on the ballot. But we're a long way away. Trucker J, I'll see you tomorrow. There's another vote. All about Fido. All right, so we'll wrap this up, folks. We're at 10 o'clock on the dot. We like to go to 10 o'clock, and we tend to stop there. Sometimes I only go to 9:30, but we went longer today because we had some good commentary going. Thank you for all the likes, everybody. So I see a few of you jumping in saying that you vote. We got a couple, about 80 million more votes to go for me to be president. So we got to collect some more people. I do these live streams Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. Eastern. I will tell everybody, you want to get a copy of one of my books for free, you can get Third Day, The Decision That Separates the Pros from the Amateurs. This book is all about how you show up and give your best effort when you least feel like it. I give you the book for free. Just cover the shipping. Go to thirddaybook.com. Third Day, spelled out, thirddaybook.com. The book's free. Just cover the shipping. We'll send this to you. Another one we got for those of you more business-minded, Sales Discipline System. This is all about taking the 8 key disciplines of top salespeople in any industry. Say goodbye to up and down months and inconsistent habits. Sales Discipline System. Get this one for free. Just cover the shipping at salesdisciplinebook.com. Salesdisciplinebook.com. And I will tell you one more. My book, The Mirror of Motivation. Self-guide, self-discipline. This book is all about how do you become the person you need to be so you can do what you need to do, have you what you want to have. Get this one for free by going to mirrorofmotivation.com. So you see, we tend to use the same format. Mirrorofmotivation.com. The book's free. Just cover the shipping. You get any one of these books free. Just go to the links I gave you or go to the link in my profile. There is a page that has the links to all of those books all in one spot. Over on Instagram, one more comment. Belford Williams said, if I have someone to blame to absolve me from doing any other work, now I get to wait on you to do the work, and that's easier for me. Yes, exactly. Empty calories, high sugar content is what people want. Nutritional value may be good for us, but the taste can be bitter. We prefer the sweet taste of what makes us feel good. That's right. If was a fifth, we'd all be drunk. That's right. So everybody, again, get these books, thirddaybook.com, mirrorofmotivation.com, salesdisciplinebook.com. The books are free. Just cover the shipping. You want to get into any of our coaching programs or my Power Presence Protocol training program will start next Tuesday. Go to the link in my profile. You can find out more about that stuff. Send me a DM. My EA, her name is Marielle. She will get back to you with links to any other things I just mentioned if you forgot or you couldn't write it down fast enough. Yes, all my books are on Audible. So if you prefer audio books, we offer the audio versions on these pages. But also, if you just want to go to Audible and get the audio book, I know a lot of you listen by audio. You can get the Audible versions of these books. And don't get it on Amazon, though. Just go to Audible, get it on Audible. But don't buy our books from Amazon because we give you a better deal. And we offer you more than one book. Because who reads just one book? You read one of my books, you're going to want to read. You read one of my books, you're going to want to read more. So we have a lot of books. You go to any one of these, they are sales funnels. Y'all know what a sales funnel is. That means we're going to offer you multiple books at the same time. So I'm not going to just give you one book. Just like, remember the Lay's potato chips ads from back in the day? You You can't eat just one. So you can't read just one of my books. You're going to read one, then you're going to want another one, another one, another one. Why don't you just buy them all at the same time? We'll give them to you. Just go to those links I gave you, mirrorofmotivation.com, salesdisciplinebook.com, thirddaybook.com. We'll get you a book. We'll get you more than one book. We'll get you enough books to last you for the rest of the year. You get all the education you need this year. Save money on student loans. Just go to Work on Your Game University. We'll get you everything you need. I got to go to the bathroom. Everybody have a great Wednesday. I will see you all tomorrow morning. We are out of here.